I just bought the Optimum Wooting collab keyboard with my own money, and it's right here. So I'm going to tell you my build experience, what I like and what I don't like about it. Now, if you don't know what this keyboard is, it's a collab between Wooting, the makers of the 60HE Plus, famously known as early adopter of Hall effect switches in gaming keyboards, which revolutionized the market. And it's a collab between them and Optimum, who was formerly known as Optimum Tech, widely considered one of the best tech YouTubers on the platform right now in the world. But this is a very expensive collab. Even Mr. Optimum himself has said, don't buy this just to support him, buy it because you like the product. Now, I bought the full standard bundle for this keyboard, and what it includes is the Optimum collab case, the Optimum collab keycaps, the Wooting 60HE Plus PCB kit, and a set of switches. You have three options: the Lacquer 45, the Lacquer 75, and Gateron Hall effect switches. I chose the Lacquer 45 because they had the lowest resistance, and I wanted a light switch so that it feels really fast and crisp and easy to have many inputs. As for the case and the keycaps, they're special because they are a certain set of grey. And one of the main selling points of this keyboard is the aesthetic. Optimum Tech is famous for high quality aesthetics. He loves grayscale color schemes and just really clean visuals. And he also loves Wooting keyboards. And so this keyboard is kind of designed to be all four of those things in one thing. And that's kind of what you're paying for, on top of excellent build quality and a very premium fit and finish. The case itself also has a stunning, beautiful shiny metal accent on the bottom, weighs a metric butt ton and is a single piece of solid metal. It's got Wooting's and Optimum's text logo on it, and it's really nice. In the box, it comes with a small piece of foam in the base of the case already included, and it also comes with a friction mount kit that replaces the foam between the PCB and the plate that allows you to slide the whole assembly into the case without any screws required, which has a few advantages. One, it's easier to install. Second, friction mounting adds a layer of insulation between the PCB and the case, which helps clean up the sound, make it more muted, which is something you might prefer. In the PCB set, which is where we'll start the building experience, you get the PCB, pre-installed screw-in stabilizers, pre-installed silicon padding between the PCB and the plate, and a pre-installed acrylic plate. You also get some foam inserts for whatever case you end up using with your PCB, in case it didn't have any, and you also get a foam insert to replace the silicon padding that it comes default in, which we'll talk more about that later. Now, the build experience starts with the PCB because for me, I wanted to make sure the stabilizers were good. I slapped in a switch and a keycap, and I can't lie, I was quite disappointed with the stock stabilizers. They're okay, but they had some rattle, and I didn't like how tacky, clacky, and high-pitched sounding they were. Maybe because it wasn't in a case, but I didn't like them. They're not my style, so I opened it up, and I actually modded these stabilizers by adding a little bit of dielectric grease on the wire. Now, some people don't like this mod. It's a fully subjective thing. I'm more old school. My keyboard knowledge is pretty outdated, but I like this because it makes a deep, rich, thocky sound, which is what I like my spacebar to sound like. After that is done, I also switched out the silicon padding that comes by default with the friction mount kit because I was curious to try it out. This was a mistake for my personal preference, but I'll talk more about that later. After that, it's as simple as screwing the stabilizers and the plate back in, slapping in the switches. I love installing Hall effect switches. There's no pins, so you're not worried about bend pins at all, and you'll never have issues with that, which is excellent. And slapping on the keycaps before sliding the whole assembly into the Wooting Optimum collab case. That's pretty much the build experience, which is pretty straightforward and pretty simple. Now, alternatively to using the friction mount kit, you can screw the PCB assembly into the case itself with the included screws. They also included rubber grommets if you want to add a bit more insulation than just screwing it straight into the board, but not as much as a friction mount. So what do I like about this keyboard after using it for a bit? Well, number one, it's got all the performance you expect from a Wooting keyboard. So if you're a competitive FPS gamer who's looking for Hall effect performance, it's a beast. You've got rapid trigger, you've got snap tap, called rapid tap in the Wooting world. You get the high performance, extremely low latency, and insane responsiveness of the Hall effect switches and setup of really any Wooting keyboard out there. I also love the aesthetics of this case, which is kind of why you buy the whole damn collab to begin with. Anyways, I really appreciate the detail that has gone into it, and even though it's very, very minimalist, it feels carefully crafted, not just something with a lot of subtraction. I love that the only branding you can see when the keyboard is on your desk is the small Optimum logo on the bottom of the spacebar, and the whole thing is hefty, weighty, weighty, feels like a thing that you can kill a man with, and it's just really solidly built all around. I also really appreciate how much time they spend making the grays on the plastic keycaps match up with the grays on the metallic case. They really did a good job, and in most lighting situations, they line up quite well. But then I have to move on to what I don't like about this keyboard, and there are some things. Number one, sound. Now this is a completely personal preference thing, but my initial build of this keyboard had very unsatisfactory sound for me. Partly was that it was too soft, and this was my fault for going friction mounting. So if you like a louder keyboard that you can really hear, don't go friction mounting. It adds so much insulation, the sound can't really resonate as a result. Number two, I thought the sound of the keyboard was really high pitched. Also, I don't really like how loud these lacquer switches are on release. So usually with the switches that I go for, they tend to have quite a quiet release sound. When you let go, they click, but not as loud as when you press down on it. This one has kind of an equal volume for when you press down and you release. And I'm sure some people like this, but for me, it's a little annoying and a little jarring. So those are my complaints with the sound. I have tried a get-around switch on this keyboard, and well, you can have a listen right now. So this is the Lacquer 45. So this is the Gateron Hall Effect switches I stole from a Pulsar. But those first two problems were fixed very, very easily with a simple swap from the friction mounting kit to the foam insert between the PCB and the plate. So I decided to add the rubber grommets on the screws before screwing it in, just for a little bit of precautionary dampening, but not too much. The result, the keyboard instantly became louder, I think mostly from removing that silicone padding and replacing it with the foam insert. Normal foam insert instead of silicone padding between the PCB and plate. The next thing I don't like about this keyboard is that the switches don't feel very nice to me, and actually I haven't really felt a Hall Effect switch that I really like. When you press down on them during the downward motion, it feels like there is a little bit of stem wobble that is noticeable if you're very slowly pressing it down. And the fact that it has such a light spring and actuation force exacerbates this issue, so I'm not the biggest fan of that. Hopefully, as future generations of Hall Effect switches come out, we can get Hall Effect switches that catch up to the quality of feel that the best mechanical switches nowadays have. I'm going to try lubing these switches in the future to try to see if it can improve the feel, assuming I can lube them safely at all. But what are your thoughts about the sound of the two different setups? Tell me what you think in the comments below. Well, is it good? I think it is. It's a beautiful aesthetic, built well, has Wooting's excellent performance, and looks gorgeous once again. It needs a couple more mods to sound perfect for my needs, but depending on your personal preference, it might just be perfect the way it is. It's a good keyboard, and it's quite unique as well on top of that. But is it worth it? Absolutely not. This is a pricey keyboard, and if you live in Asia like I do, shipping is going to be crazy expensive, which is also going to be another problem stacked on top of that. But this is not a keyboard that is designed to be worth it. This is a keyboard that is premium, that is high-end, designed for a very niche audience of people who love grayscale things or clean-looking minimalist things. And for that audience, this keyboard might justify its price. We're not at that point yet where cheap Hall Effect keyboards are close or basically keeping up with what Wooting is doing. That's probably a year or 2 years out. But it is coming. That future is definitely approaching. So if you're okay with waiting a little bit and price is really important to you and value is really important to you, then that is probably the way to go. But is this a darn amazing keyboard and I want to keep using? Yeah, of course. I love this thing. And with that, thank you guys so much for watching. Goodbye.